Welcome to the very first episode of Thermax's Fireside Tech Talks. My name is Nishaanth B. I'm your host for this conversation. With me, I have Mr. Arun Unni, who's the head of new energy and head of strategy at Thermax. For those of you who don't know Thermax has been at the forefront of energy and environment solutions for over the last 6 decades. So in this conversation, we are going to be exploring how Thermax is leveraging its legacy and experience into industrial decarbonization and new energy systems. So, Arun, welcome to this, podcast.
Thanks, Nishaanth.
And I'd love to, before we begin, I'd love to know a little bit about your journey here. How did you end up as the head of strategy and new energies here at Thermax?
Great to have this conversation. I've been at Thermax for the last 15 odd months now, a year and a half. I wear two hats. One is I lead new energy, which is a mix of 5 businesses. Green hydrogen is one of them, but beyond that, we do a lot of CBG, compressed biogas. We do renewables, we do biomass-based utilities, we run fuel cells, as well as many other kind of new fuels. The other hat that I wear is, of course, strategy for Thermax. Before I came here, I've spent a lot of time on sustainability and both dirty as well as clean energy. So I used to lead sustainability for one of the large consulting companies in the Asia Pac region. And before that, I was also an operator at one of the older at the Tata Group companies. So I've spent a fair amount of time on both old, new energy as well as strategy, and it's really exciting to be part of an organization that's pushing this to the frontiers in India.
I can see the pride in that. I think Thermax is quite a versatile player as well. And before we start on this, today we're going to be talking only about green hydrogen. Perhaps it's a segment of the 5 different sectors and portfolios you're handling.
Yeah.
For those of us who don't know much about green hydrogen, in your lens, what is green hydrogen? Why green hydrogen? And where does green hydrogen fit?
If I were to contextualize green hydrogen in terms of where it fits in the overall scheme of decarbonization, I just want to take you through how typically decarbonization works in an industrial context, right? The easiest way to decarbonize is to just use less energy. Efficiency is the fastest way to decarbonize. Once you've exhausted or you've gone down the path of efficiency levers, you'll realize that the next cheapest option to decarbonization is typically electrification or using green electrons, right? Because we've seen solar, wind, we've seen power prices kind of come really, really low, and that is often the most economic way of decarbonization. You come to a point where neither efficiency nor electrification and green electrons can decarbonize any further, and that's where you need molecules. So far, of all the work that we have done, there are 2 molecules that are dominating where decarbonization can happen. One of them is methane and one of them is hydrogen, right? Without methane and hydrogen, decarbonization is simply not possible, right? And when you've exhausted all the molecule options, that's when you come to the last leg of decarbonization, which is capturing the carbon that you have to kind of generate. In a sense, if I were to take a step back and say, is green hydrogen an option? It is not an option. It's not a question of if green hydrogen needs to happen. It's a question of when green hydrogen will happen. Because once the adoption, like in all other technologies, reaches a commercially and technologically and economically viable point, the adoption is pretty much like necessary to happen. Whether it will happen in before 2030, 2035, 2040 is the question that's remaining in front of us.
So green hydrogen is definitely an opportunity. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Now, coming from what Thermax is all about, and you are looking at 5 different portfolios, and there is certain degree of integration that you already need in your role.
Yeah.
But of course, green hydrogen, it calls for integration between sectors and industries. So as Thermax, how are you enabling this entire energy transition?
So green hydrogen for us is so natural an adjacency that it's something that was, from our perspective, inevitable in a way. As Thermax, we are deeply integrated with our industrial customers. We are predominantly a B2B company, and we are deeply integrated in our customers' needs for clean energy, clean air, and clean water. And what that means is every element of what green hydrogen is as a technology, whether it is the need for water, it is the need for energy efficiency, whether it is the need for how to optimize an overall system, integrate EPC. These are all aspects that we've been familiar with and we're comfortable with. We've been doing this for 60 years. It just now converges to a technology where all of it actually makes sense. So from our perspective, given that our focus area is to be an energy transition partner to our customers, this seems like a logical next step. Okay, like I mentioned in the past, we already have a renewable power business. Okay, we have a CBG business. It's just natural that we talk about the next molecule, which is green hydrogen. And of course, eventually, when carbon capture and other technologies come, we would be very keen on those as well.
What you've put Thermax's journey and next steps naturally is also what a clean industrial ecosystem calls for, which is an integrated approach. And I'm glad you emphasized that you want to serve customers for their entire green energy transition, not just purely, give them a product or a service, but rather help them in a more holistic manner. So let's dig into some of these capabilities, right? You've hinted at some of what Thermax has done. So perhaps if you could dwell deeper into that, in 60 years, what all has Thermax been doing? And in all of these various elements that you said are coming together, which is efficiency, which is reduction of perhaps heat, and then your EPC work as well. So if you could talk a little bit more about, all of this in depth.
Everybody who's been part of the industrial sector in India over the last 50 to 60 years would recognize Thermax's name from a boiler perspective in any case, right? We are known for our boilers, we are known for our heat management, we are known for our heating solutions. There were very natural adjacencies to that, to the boiler, to the heat management, to energy kind of management, which we entered into, which included any boiler needs water. Okay, it needs pollution control. So both the water as well as the environment and pollution themes became a naturally integrated part of what kind of we started to do. And then beyond that, this whole process needs chemicals. So we went to the chemicals business, and then we started entering the new energy businesses as well, including power, quite a few years back, right? And all of this, because we are so deep into the customer's processes, each of these are areas which we could leverage when we thought about kind of green hydrogen, right? So at the outset, green hydrogen needs clean, demineralized water. It's one of the fastest growing verticals within Thermax. All our customers need water in various forms, okay, whether at the beginning of the process or at the end of the process as effluent treatment. It's something that we know what kind of water is made, how best and most efficiently to make it. And as an input, natural input to the electrolysis process, it's something that we know how to do. The entire process of renewable energy as an input is something that we understand very well. We already have a CNI business of 300 megawatts going very quickly to 450 megawatts. Will be a gigawatt by end of next year of CNI business. It's an area that we understand very well. Another one of the two critical inputs to green hydrogen and the electrolysis process. Thereafter, once the electrolysis process is over, you need purification. Our whole Enviro business is about air quality, it's about purification, the entire separation of hydrogen and oxygen, and making sure that you get the highest quality and purity hydrogen is something that the purification process does. We understand that very, very deeply. At the end of the day, if you want to achieve the kind of competitiveness that you need in the market today at the lowest cost of hydrogen, you need all of this to be integrated very, very closely and effectively. You need to make sure that the entire energy of the system is optimized, not just at the electrolyzer level, but across the whole system. Again, our EPC capabilities, our industrial infra business has been doing this for decades now for power and for other industries as well. We understand this very, very deeply. So put together, when you're talking about an industrial process that needs to deliver such low-cost hydrogen as we see in the market, day after day, year after year, for decades, that's exactly the kind of tough problem we are comfortable working with our customers on. Okay, and being with our customers on the long journey. So from our perspective, it is a natural segue into a lot of what we are actually doing in the market today with our customers.
With the existing ecosystem and all of these decarbonization pathways, it is calling for a coming together of the renewable energy ecosystem, the water ecosystem, like you spoke about, and then there are some of these complex challenges when it comes to using an electrolyzer itself. You spoke about gas separation and your experience there as well. Now, when you look at all of this, from what I've heard from you, I can see that as a customer, they look at Thermax as a reliable partner because you have depth and breadth of experience across all of this. How much of a difference does this make in conversations with your existing clients when it comes to green hydrogen? Are people able to differentiate what Thermax can provide against other competitors who are giving the same service?
Sunish, I think there are both positives and negatives in these conversations, right? I think one of the first thing that happens when we enter a conversation with our industrial customers, they do know us for a few things. When they hear us talk about a set of things which they haven't really thought of us by default before, so they know us for boilers, they know us for water, they know us for enviro. When they talk to us about new energy, I think at first there is an initial conversation. Then they realize that we've been into this business for quite a few years. So I think that there is that awareness effort that needs to happen in these conversations. But once we are past that barrier, I think the natural synergies do emerge in their minds as well as to how all of this comes together to be something that's not just a one-time benefit at the initial capex stage, but something that's a lifetime partnership that they can work with somebody on. I think the jury is still out on which are those specific partnerships that will form over the next 12 to 18 months. Okay, but from our perspective, we believe there's a very strong chance that we get our fair share of that particular business. I think it's very difficult for any one company to be dominant in this space because there are so many opportunities in so many ways. But I think our attempt is to be at least have a fair share of what the opportunity is in the next 12 to 18 months and be part of that conversation.
Arun, when you look 3 years ago, all the announcements that came on hydrogen were mainly from renewable energy developers in India.
Yeah.
And for them, it was pretty simple to do a renewable energy project.
Yeah.
Right? You can do your wind and solar connected to the grid, you're done. Now, when it comes to green hydrogen, it becomes much more complex.
Okay.
It's cross-cutting across sectors.
Yeah.
Right? As much as you emphasize the know-hows between various aspects of this, there is a larger, or wider breadth of different experts you will need in a green hydrogen project.
Yeah.
Right? And this is where I think partnerships are important.
Okay.
And today, in existing projects, as much as there is a flag bearer for that project, there are 7 or 8 serious companies involved in all of these projects.
Yeah.
So for this new age clean industrial ecosystems, or for green hydrogen purely, you cannot do this by yourself. And I'm glad you recognize that and you've spoken about it. When it comes to your partnerships, who are you partnering with? What are you looking out for, right? What are these partners coming and filling in for you in spite of the breadth of experience you have?
Yeah. One of the fundamental differences, like you mentioned, between just we're setting up a renewable power plant and generating electricity from it versus something like a green hydrogen project, where that is just one of the inputs and there are several other inputs and they need to be integrated well, is that each of these components has to play its part well. And from that perspective, we are also very clear that while we understand many of these elements together, we are not masters at all. And there are partners whom we are working very closely with on the electrolyzer R&D side. But these are not passive partnerships. For example, on alkaline, we are working with Hydrogen Pro. On SOEC, which is another electrolyzer technology, we are working with Ceres. But in each of these cases, these partnerships are joined at the hip because we believe that the Indian context of even hydrogen generation is going to be different from how it works in the rest of the world. So how an electrolyzer needs to behave, the power profile that it needs to respond to, these are all fundamental questions that one needs to work with the partners on. So we have electrolyzer technology R&D partners on the same. While we have our own internal renewable power companies as well, we do strongly believe that we need to develop our product in the context of the larger ecosystem of power producers in the country. So we are very closely working with both other power producers apart from us. We're also closely working with other EPC players who have relevant experience apart from us. So there are multiple components of this that we are working on. In addition to this, it is not just about the production and manufacturing of electrolyzers that we believe partnerships, and this is a very nascent space at this point in time. So we are also partnering fundamentally at the R&D side. Right? So our recent MOU with HPCL had electrolyzers as one of those elements, because we think this is just the beginning of the journey. There are multiple other technologies that need to be explored. AEM is one of them. And so we are exploring different kinds of ways of how to take this ecosystem forward. I mean, we are not in it just for the short run, we are in for the long run. And we believe that a lot of these is how it's too large a space for any one player to try and invest everything and be the best at everything. So partnerships are the way to go.
You touched on different kinds of technologies that are out there in the market as well. Clearly, as Thermax, you're looking at alkaline with hydrogen Pro,
Yeah.
and you're looking at SOEC with
Ceres.
Ceres power.
Yes.
Now, what about integrating these technologies itself? Do you see projects where you will have to put a certain percentage of alkaline, back it up with SOEC because of certain advantages and benefits?
Absolutely. I think that we, though we don't see that happening in the short term, maybe not in the next couple of 2 to 3 years, but longer term, as soon as we get into the kind of industries where like steel, okay, and fertilizers, where there is waste heat, where there is, you need to deal with a certain kind of peaking of both on the input side as well as the output side in terms of need of what the customers have and the ramp up, ramp down requirements. We believe it will be an integrated solution that will actually deliver. It will not be just one electrolyzer bank. It will be a mix of different kinds of electrolyzer kind of products that will come together to deliver an optimized solution. And that's something that, again, integration, EPC, optimization, a digital optimization layer, using of technology to make sure that the analytics, you can't, again, manually adjust the electrolyzer bank to deliver the right kind of output, right? It has to be done digitally, it has to be done analytically. Having the right kind of solutions, we already have EdgeLive as a platform which allows us to do that. We're taking this forward to hydrogen ecosystem as well. These are all going to be very, very critical part of a multi-technology solution that exists in the future.
You touched upon quite a few interesting points here, which is, which reflects that you're not merely looking at going and installing a product. You're looking to serve this over a lifetime.
Absolutely.
And offer various solutions for that. So if you can expand on it.
No, absolutely. I think, Nisho, the way we fully expect that we will get better and better at optimizing electrolyzer systems as we operate them more and more, right? So the first year will deliver the guaranteed outputs that we are committing to the customer, but there is significant opportunity after that as you learn and operate and optimize to improve the productivity of these systems year after year after year over the lifetime. That's where the digital analytics comes in. That's where the continuous improvement in technology comes in. And we are very, very clearly looking at these as 20-year relationships with our customers rather than a one-time sale. And which is why we are committed to building a local ecosystem. We're committed to building a local network of service, okay, spares, and all other kind of facilities needed to be able to service this from a lifetime perspective. So in our mind, whether it is on us from a single customer perspective or from an ecosystem perspective, we are committing to the long term on this particular space.
Arun, you've already spoken about 2 global companies as partners. Now, does this also translate into global ambitions, or you're just looking at Indian conditions and Indian market currently?
I would say both, but it has to be India first, not global first. The way we are thinking about it is, and for many reasons, and which even the world is seeing, India is becoming the hotbed for where green hydrogen is evolving in many ways, right? So you have to have a relevant presence in India, and that relevant presence in India will tell the world that you are competitive enough and you are kind of strong enough to play in this particular. And so for us, it is India first and then the world, but definitely the world as a kind of second chapter to what we are doing.
With project developers, and the question was about electrolyzer providers, and we're like, what is the number one thing that you want, that you would consider when you choose an electrolyzer? And somehow the most important point that was raised was local support, right, and local presence. Right now, of course, in India you have that. You're able to be there for the customer, address needs, etc., etc. But now when it comes to adopting these technologies for global markets, how will you address some of these challenges?
At Thermax, we are reasonably global in our approach. So there are many sector, or I would say SBUs within Thermax, where the majority of the product is actually sold globally. So our cooling business, the larger proportion of its products are sold globally than in India. Our chemicals business is similar. We are used to servicing in geographies which are outside India as well. Typically, we are stronger in a few select geographies. Okay, so for example, in Southeast Asia, in the Middle East, in a few other geographies is where we are particularly stronger. But that's something that we are comfortable doing. So we expect to use a similar kind of capability where it's India out. We don't expect to set up manufacturing outside India, but we definitely expect to set up servicing capabilities, support capabilities outside India to be able to support customers as well.
In this whole mix, speak a little bit more about your proprietary technologies. You mentioned something called Edge Live as well, which I believe you're using for your other businesses, but you're looking to apply this into the green hydrogen electrolyzer systems as well. Is that right?
In fact, we've already started our first set of conversations on an electrolyzer setup at an Indian customer, okay, where this solution is likely to get deployed. And because of its flexibility, because of its inherent kind of digital analytics capabilities, which it's already using on both electrical as well as mechanical systems, and we know what kind of integration is needed, what kind of sensors are already needed, what kind of IoT is needed to be able to kind of build it from the ground up, and that's something that we're designing in our systems already. So it's something that we expect. It's not. In fact, we're already working on it, and we expect to see customer deployment reasonably soon in the electrolyzer context as well.
So what I'm saying, Arun, is there is a system level, innovation rather than a component level innovation in your case, which is quite, it's quite interesting because a lot of new players in the market are coming without the breadth of experience and legacy that you have. So it clearly helps Thermax stand out. And I'm sure you're also giving value back to Hydrogen Pro and Cirrus Power with everything that you have in-house and the technologies that you're developing as well.
I think everybody knows right now that one of the most globally competitive markets in the world to operate is India from a green hydrogen perspective. So whatever we're doing in India is something that goes to the rest of the world in terms of how it is actually being deployed, the implementation experience, the cost optimization, all of it goes back to the rest of the world. But the other thing here is also that we don't want to, some of our digital capabilities, we don't want to restrict only to the technologies that we are working on. We want it to be a bit more broader, applicable to a broader kind of set of capabilities. So in our mind, whether the electrolyzers are ours or not, we should still be in a position to optimize using some of these analytics kind of systems capabilities. So we are thinking of it again from a broader perspective than simply our own core areas of focus.
You also mentioned a little bit about mechanical, interventions. So in all of this, with these systems, with SOEs, with Cirrus Power and with Hydrogen Pro, are you also looking at mechanical components that Thermax is developing and integrating into these systems?
In pretty much all of these conversations, one of the core elements is indigenization, right? So in most of these cases, because in both these cases, whether it is Hydrogen Pro or Cirrus, our partners are European. And while they design to a particular standard and build to a particular standard, we believe that there's a lot of room for optimization when you look at it in the Indian context as well. And that's something that we are used to. We are used to indigenization. We're used to kind of building a vendor base and capabilities and cost structure, okay, which suits these conditions. And that's something that we believe will, not only are we working on to benefit from an Indian perspective, but it's something that we believe will actually be relevant from a global perspective as well.
Just to touch more about global perspectives, you mentioned a little bit about, these companies coming with products that are compliant with EU standards, etc. Now, for us, it is an emerging ecosystem. How is this being looked at here? Are you helping, local standards being developed and evolved as well?
That's part of the offering. It's by design, you cannot take to market here a product which doesn't meet the standards that need to be met here. So the first job that we have when working with any of these technology products, the technology partners, is to build a modular kind of product that directly meets all requirements here, right? And in building that product is where the opportunity lies for optimization. And so which is why it's not just a technology transfer where we take what they have and then build it here. It is a true partnership where we are looking at what can be done with it to both meet standards as well optimized kind of cost and operations. Right? And that's really the way we are actually looking at building this.
So it looks like in the end it's a joint product and service. It's not simply Thermax's or Cirrus or Hydrogen Pros. It is integrated, and I think it's reflective of the larger hydrogen project you could be supplying to as well, because they will still need partners for their RE, they'll need partners for their ammonia synthesis, etc. So I think this touches beautifully with what you started off on, what industrial decarbonization is and where hydrogen sits. And I think that breaks down into hydrogen as well, where hydrogen is being applied across different sectors, and then within a one hydrogen project you have all of these various partnerships.
Correct.
Optimizations, it's digital, mechanical, then you have heat that you touched upon as well.
Yeah.
And then of course, gas and experience in handling gases, separations, etc. This should be very challenging for anybody who's looking to integrate all of this. You need to have the breadth and depth of experience. But I want to move to the next segment here. We want to really touch upon the brand credibility that Thermax has, but also when it's a 60-year-old legacy company, it's inevitable that there's rigidity within the organization, and there's old systems that worked, but they could not work in the future, but you don't want to move away from. So how are you handling this? How are you committing yourself to the energy transition, and how are you repositioning Thermax as this partner for somebody's energy transition?
Yeah, I think Nish, that's a very important part of what we are looking to do over the next few years. Having a brand Thermax, because of the dedication that we've shown to the market, to the customers over the last few decades, it allows you to initiate conversations which are not easy to do for many other brands. And to that extent, I think there is a great starting point of being able to open doors because of the credibility that you have, because you've been with the customer through tough and kind of good times. It allows us an opportunity to have the energy transition conversation. But after having initiated the conversation, you need to stand on your own in terms of your abilities in the technologies that you're looking to deliver, right? And this is where I think one by one on each of the new technologies that we've actually picked up, okay, we are having to build our ground, and we are having to kind of prove our mettle by going to the market and working with customers as well as with partners on this. It has happened reasonably already with our renewable portfolio. For example, the fact that we have close to a 400 megawatt portfolio of purely CNI, looking to be a gigawatt in next year, is a testament to the fact that many customers trust us with their renewable needs. The fact that we have at TOSL, which is a new energy green steam operations, we built a 400-500 crore business over the last 5 to 7 years, is again testament to the fact that customers trust us with new offerings. On biogas, we are again one of the largest biogas producers in the country. Each step takes a little bit of time, but over time, customers trust us to do the right thing by them, and we've been with them through the journey of the assets as well. So, from our perspective, I think this is a rite of passage for us to build these, and the way we see new energy as a natural hedge to what will happen to the market, one way or the other. Energy transition might move slow or might move fast over the next decade. If it moves slow, we have an existing portfolio of products that already well caters to that particular market. If it moves fast, we want to be ready with the portfolio that serves that market as well. So either way, Thermax has a role to play with our customers' journey in the next decades to come.
Now, earlier you mentioned that it's not about if hydrogen will happen. It's just about when, right?
Yeah.
And so we're sure it will happen. But unfortunately for you, you have investors, you have a bottom line to look at. And what if hydrogen takes a little bit longer? How are you managing, those inherent market risks today? How do you view that? And how are you readjusting your strategies to adapt to this?
I think that we're very lucky, Anish, in the sense that because we are a patient, promoter-driven organization, this is not being funded by private equity money. This is the work of a team that knows how to play the long game. Okay, this is our promoters, Meher Firoz and Anu Aga, along with Ashish, have all very clearly kind of set it up to be a longer term kind of picture. And so the results in 1 or 2 years can go one way or the other. But over the long term, we are committed to making this work.
I think that's what you need to succeed in the space. I think you need a lot of resilience, because we've been surprised by the prices that have come out, and all the noise that was there and what's happening on the ground. And of course, you've clearly showcased how complex some of this could be. And I hope, and clearly with the various portfolios you have opportunities beyond the pure green hydrogen plays into other gases as well. But in terms of your commitments, your ambitions, right? What milestones are you working towards, and what does the future look like?
Yeah, specifically in the hydrogen context, I think we know that there is a gigawatt and a half to 2 gigawatts of electrolyzers that will actually get bought in the next 12 to 18 months, right? And our ambition there is just to have a reasonably fair share of what we think of that pie, and make sure that we are delivering that well. We don't want to take on too much. Okay, we want to take enough so that we are able to deliver it on the ground and prepare for the next wave of opportunities, because there is a certain chunkiness to the opportunities as they are emerging in the market today. So getting the right share in the first year or two, delivering and proving it on the ground, and then working towards the next set of opportunities, the way we are looking at it. And we think this space will evolve. So from our perspective, again, it's about evolving with the space as it goes along. So we will again look to adapt and invest continuously in this particular period as well.
Looking at some of the projects today, these electrolyzers are not even coming from India, right? They're coming from China. China has innovated, they brought the cost down, etc. Right? Now, against such competition, where innovation has happened because the governments and ecosystems stifle them, push them to reduce costs and innovate, whereas you don't have that pressure, right? How are you going to keep up with them? And how are you going to convince your customers that you could be a little bit more expensive, or you could be in par in the future? I still don't know. I'll wait for you to answer that. How are you able to convince customers to buy Thermax's electrolyzers?
From our perspective, the competitive costs that are there in the market need to be met, right? And the way we are looking at responding to that is our whole effort at indigenization. In fact, even the way the components are kind of being sourced from various locations, we are very clear that we are sourcing in a very cost optimized way. This is not a more expensive than competition product. What we are saying is that this is a product that when you put together and you operate on a lifetime basis, should give you a more competitive LCOH. Okay, and you should be able to and along with the comfort that you have a local partner to support you at this particular kind of period. So this is not, we do not think that an expensive product with other features can win this game. You have to be cost competitive. You have to play the game the way it is emerging in the market. And so we are fully geared up to to work towards that. And of course, beyond that, we do believe that it is not only about the upfront capex, but the day-to-day, year-to-year kind of production costs, optimization, reliability, maintenance, all of that will need to be integrated into the LCOH. And that's where we think that we are positioned well. And that's our kind of positioning in the market as well.
Now, in terms of just purely the capex part, do you think there will be a time in the near future where you will be globally competitive?
We think we are already reasonably
already
globally competitive. We do think that there will be a continuous change in global benchmarks as well once you see products on the ground and operating at the efficiencies they need to. Because a lot of these maths that are being done right now are being done a bit on paper. And so when you have these products operating for a period of time is when you know what the true costs are, what the true kind of the LCOH is.
Indeed.
And we think that will, again, kind of things will evolve. And that's how people will start looking at products and opportunities differently as well.
And I think you're well positioned to handle some of it, and I'm glad that you're stressing on the levelized cost of hydrogen.
Correct.
Rather than the pure capex, which I think some people at the beginning, they made that mistake to be blindsided by the capex cost. And I think you raised a very good point that some of these claims are yet to be verified.
Correct.
And we are not sure how the O&M would play out and how consistency will exist in some of these projects. It's been a very interesting conversation, and I got to know a little bit more about your products and offerings, and it's clear that you're able to differentiate yourself already from the crowd that exists in this sector. But looking into the future, what are the two biggest things that excite you in the near term, and one biggest thing that excites you in the longer term?
In the shorter term, I think what the things that are exciting me most are the fact that, unlike in a lot of the rest of the world, the opportunities in India are real. These are bankable projects, okay, with tied up demand. The trap into which a lot of other global electrolyzer players have have fallen into is that they were catering to customers, to FIDs, which forever seem to which seem to appear and then disappear. I think the fact that we have something firm, something real in India, is I think the most all you can ask for at this particular point in time, right? And it's more than what the rest of the world can claim. I think that's a really, really good,
So in the
exciting
short term,
opportunity.
the Indian opportunity
Is
is real and
phenomenal.
huge.
In the long term, I have the most interesting. I think because we will do so much in the short term, I genuinely believe that in the medium to long term, knowledge of green hydrogen that will be available in this country will be by far the most powerful anywhere in the world. India will be leading the world in terms of knowing what it means to set up, to operate, to deliver hydrogen. Fully expect that it's this team of people who are working on all the tough problems today to get to these prices that will tell the rest of the world how they need to look at green hydrogen in the future, right? So I think that the pool that we are developing of capabilities, issues while we go through the struggles today is something that will support global green hydrogen in the long term. So it's very excited about that.
Arun, you brought up a very interesting thing here, which is India's position in the new global energy ecosystem, right? And you've already hinted that green hydrogen will play a defining role. But if you can expand a little bit more on geopolitics, green hydrogen, and India's positioning.
I think geopolitics, I would not go so far into on the geopolitics side. I think purely on the economic, from an economics perspective, there are many things that converge in India which allow it to be a good global hub for both green hydrogen and ammonia as well as talent. So on green hydrogen and ammonia, I think it's very well known that not only do we have some of the cheapest renewable costs in the world, we have electricity networks which allow you to transport it from the cheapest electricity source to the right place where the hydrogen needs to be done, right? So when you have an efficient market like that, when you have the cheapest electricity costs, when you have the whole of the rest of the world also coming together to bring the right product into the into the ecosystem from an electrolyzer perspective, you have the opportunity to corner a reasonably large share of the global green ammonia or green hydrogen requirement from a place like India. Will it be the absolute cheapest? It doesn't need to be. It needs to be in the top 2-3 of consideration of the geographies where it matters, and that I think will India very much will be in that particular zone. The other thing that I was mentioning, because it is one of the earlier adopters at scale of green hydrogen, it will end up being a pool of talent as well. So the soft, it's not just the hard product, but the soft product of the intellectual capability, of the expertise, of the technical, of being able to set these up and operate it is something that also India will be able to export beyond just the hard product.
No, so it's clear. Green hydrogen is not an opportunity just for Thermax. It's an opportunity for India as a country as well. But what would you say to people who are still on the fence about green hydrogen and are not really true believers of it?
No, as I mentioned, I start with the thesis that green hydrogen is not an if, it is a when. There is a percentage of the decarbonization of the world that cannot happen without green hydrogen. So if you at all believe in energy transition, that's also an if these days. There are people who don't believe in energy transition. If at all you believe in energy transition, then you will land up at a point where you have to believe in green hydrogen. But then yes, there is and it is right to question, is it a 2027, is it a 2030, is it a 2035? I think that we will, all the numbers show that it is coming sooner rather than later, but I think we still have to, we will go through the journey and before it's actually proven.
It was such a pleasure talking to you, Arun.
Nice.
Thank you for sharing not just your perspectives, but I can clearly see it's a wide breadth of experience that you're bringing to the table when you share some of these insights. It's a true pleasure talking to you.
Thanks. Same here, Nish. And you've got a tough job as well, shepherding this particular industry through the country. And best of luck to you as well.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much, Arun.
Thanks, Nish. Thank you. Bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Arun Unni from Thermax. And thank you all for tuning in and keep pushing the frontiers of sustainable energy. Thank you.